feedback, right? Because I know the main thing that most people probably came for was the new law. So like Emmanuel said, executive orders are temporary, they're not permanent. We're all hoping for a new law. If it does happen, it'll be the greatest thing. I know Alvis just said something about the DD program being repealed. I know a lot of people are disappointed by that. And there's a lot of talk. I think there was a seminar, somebody said me about a debate about that. People try to advocate. But I wouldn't think it's the end of the world. The reason being, most of us are highly educated, highly driven, highly skilled, and a married system with benefit of the system. As a family-based system. So it's not the end of the world. Give on one hand and take on the other. So instead of, bowing our heads, encourage your brothers, nephews, nieces, aunts, cousins to pursue a career in science, in math, and in any extraordinary field. Let them manifest their skills, and they'll have the ability to migrate. Beyond that, what is the most important thing? Consult your lawyer. Okay, this is a complex area. Consult your lawyer. I'm not saying you need a lawyer in every single case, but I'm saying consult. Make an informed decision. Consult one before you take the next step. And part of that same process is what? Make sure that you start collecting all your documents. Whatever it is that you need to prove either paying taxes, being present, not being a criminal, whatever it is, have a clear documentation. Okay? It's easier to look at a file that's clean than a file that has every nuance in it. You want to stream through the process, make it clean. Apply as soon as possible. We talked about a timeline. 1 year, it could be 18 months added if you want to be first in line. Don't try to be at the end of the line. So timing is critical. Timing is critical. And like we said, there are many avenues for relief. Employment, family, skill, and talent. The U.S. needs talent. We have the talent. And the best way to do it, stay out of trouble. Which is most important, stay out of trouble. And then just aspire to do the best you can. We'll take a brief 5-minute recess so that we can collect the questions, and then we can do a question and answer session.
Before we go for a break, let me just make a quick announcement here, or a quick comment. I want to thank the expert. Actually, I learned a lot. As you see my notebook, is I jot down a lot of things which I didn't know. I thought I knew something, but a lot of things came out that I didn't know. So I'm very appreciative of the president of CAMCOH. That's very good. One quick note, before you leave the room, I would like you guys to register. Sister Elizabeth is there, or financial secretary, to give your information there for registration, so that we can have your names and email list, so that we can inform you guys as upcoming seminars will be good. This is one of the type of objectives that CAMCOH is doing, to educate our people. Yeah, there will be educational forum, healthcare forum, lawyer forum, and digital forum. So you want to be in the forefront. So please leave your information out there before you leave the room. That's the main thing that I want to know.
Please hand your questions over to Manfred, and then I'll collect them afterwards.
If you have a question, give it to me, or if you don't want to write on paper, when the time comes, you just put your hand up and ask a question.
All right, welcome back. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to question and answer session now. There was a good question that came in earlier. So,
yeah. Hi, my name's Chris, and I'd like to ask a question. A lot of my wife's relatives, particularly her nieces and nephews, don't have a lot of the higher education and the great skills that the U.S. is looking for, what advice can you give to them? You know, so like they may or may, I'm not, some of them have their high school degrees, some of them don't. A lot of them, you know, they're looking for an opportunity. What kind of path, is there any way that they can come to the United States?
Chris, thanks for your question. That's actually a common problem that a lot of us have. And the laws as they are right now, unfortunately, doesn't accommodate nieces and nephews. However, on their own, I think what they can try to focus on, in light of some of the new rules that are being proposed and that are in the Senate bill, maybe picking a particular skill set that they can work on. They're still, most of them probably still young. They can pick a particular trade. They can try to gain some more experience in that field, just to be able to give themselves a chance on the points-based system, which is what they're trying to introduce in the new immigration bill. Unfortunately, they cannot come under maybe a family preference system or immediate relative system because they don't qualify as an immediate relative or any of the current family preference system. So I think it's more on them now to be able to find a way to market themselves, to make themselves, how they can add value to the U.S. A skill could be in hair braiding or something. If they can show that, what's it called? There's a name for that. Makeup artist or makeup specialist, beautician. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Try to gain some kind of acknowledgement or getting some kind of diploma and getting as much experience in that field as possible. That could give you a chance under the merit, the points-based system, which they're trying to introduce in the new bill.
At this point, I would say they probably have one more year to play the game. That's if they do pass it. So that's one route that they try. And like Kevin said, trying to see how they can improve their skills. I think it's at this point when they're still young, it's easy for them to try to divert their attention to like nursing, for example, which is of very high demand in the U.S. for physical therapists. So some of those professions that require not too long training.
General science and technology. Engineering, science, technology, math. So a lot of them, if they're doing A-levels in sciences, that might be an avenue for them to consider.
One of the friends on left asked a similar question and definitely asked me, and I wasn't going back to Carlos. This question was, he said, if I can get a student visa to come here, what are the guarantees that he can train acquire the benefit of taking a job from that B or S visa into the legal university?
Under the new law? Or
not under the new law, it's not general. That happens all the time.
Yeah, it just goes back to what you're studying in school. Like if you're doing a bachelor's in history or something, I feel like probably not really going to be very helpful. But if let's say you're doing a bachelor's in petroleum engineering, you guys know what kind of shortages they have in oil and gas industry right now, where they're looking at filling a lot of jobs. So somebody getting an F1 visa to study one of those very high demand professions increases your chances.
You could even do, if the person comes as an F1 and gets into a nursing program, and the person has a BSc nursing, and you go to underserved areas, okay, you get a job very easily. Hospitals will sponsor you, and in less than no time you have your green card. As long as you're serving, you're working at the underserved areas. Like anywhere you find it, you go Ohio.
Alaska.
I mean, even in Texas, they have areas.
Louisiana, Alexander, Louisiana.
McAllen area. I know I've sent a couple of people go closer to the border town. So those are underserved areas. So you don't necessarily have to go up to the Montana area where it's cold and all of that. You can find those areas within Texas and Louisiana.
Next question.
So there hasn't been a lot of talks about L1 and L2 status. I guess maybe it's not, I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of people L1 and L2. But two questions I wanted to ask. First, and a friend of mine was calling because he couldn't make it, and he was asking, and that's a question that I want to ask. On L1 status, how or intercompany transferability? Is there any door to permanent residence? And how does it, because the way as discussions with people in the company, friends and so forth, the idea is always, well, it's almost impossible. So that's one question. And then the other question is the dependence. What kind of pieces besides, because they are healthy normally, okay? So is there any option for them also obtain on their own any form of permanent residence?
Okay, let me try to answer that. Right now with the intercompany transferees, it's pretty much the same thing because you come in as a non-immigrant, so it's a non-immigrant status.
Exactly.
And you come in here for a specific purpose, usually for a specific period of time and for a specific company, obviously. The only way that an L visa holder can translate to a permanent resident is if your company is willing to sponsor it. And yes, and right now, as much as I know, it doesn't really happen unless you have some really special skill set that they require in the place where you're moving to. So it's very difficult, as you probably already know. So unfortunately, the answer is with the L visa, yes, it can be done, but you need the company to sponsor you. Okay. It doesn't bar you as long as you're within that L visa status. I don't believe, and I can verify to make sure I'm not wrong as far as that is concerned. It doesn't bar you from gaining sponsor from another company.
It's made difficult.
It's
I don't know
difficult,
exactly
yes.
how.
It's difficult, but the law doesn't totally bar it.
Okay.
Okay? I think the requirement is you're staying within the same profession or the same line of work, and you can get a sponsorship from a different company. It's possible to do it. It's not straightforward, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But the law doesn't totally bar it. And the reason they do that is because it's not something that they want to encourage. Okay? And with the L2, the dependents, you're basically a dependent of the principal. So whatever happens to the principal happens to you all. So you cannot independently acquire a different status as a dependent.
Thank you.
I have a question for you then. Earlier you were talking about crime, the different crimes that bar you. There's a lot that we've heard in our community about people who get in trouble years back, they take some kind of deal, right? What are the consequences of taking a deal?
Yeah.
Not a prosecution, like probation or deferred.
Yeah, it's very, very, before you do it, the way the trend is now is, current trend now is, under the Obama regime, there's a lot. So what has happened is the Supreme Court passed a case called Padilla, where before you take a plea, permanent residents, L1, F1 student, anybody, you got to talk to an immigration officer or immigration attorney first, okay? And your lawyer who is representing you must tell you that if you plead to this case, it has immigration consequences. At first, it used to be, it will. or it might. Now it has to be concrete. Okay? So what does that mean? If you get convicted for a charge of assault or family violence, you pick a probation, okay? That's a conviction for immigration purposes. You understand, right? So whether you're a permanent resident or you're an F1 student, okay, you have to be aware of the immigration consequences. You understand? You guys get it? Does that help? And there was a thing I had to cover between misdemeanors and felonies, okay? A traffic ticket is a misdemeanor. It's a class C misdemeanor. That doesn't count. Okay? That doesn't count. Having a traffic ticket doesn't count. Okay? But when you start going to a B and an A B maximum time is 180 days, an A maximum time is a year. You understand, right? So once it starts going up higher and higher, then you move now felony 1s, felony 2s, it gets very critical. Okay, so a misdemeanor is like a lower level of a criminal offense, and a felony is like a high level. But a C, which is a traffic ticket, does not count. So you can have as much traffic tickets as you want. However, let me say this. If you're driving with a suspended license, due to the fact that you do not have insurance, and your driver's license gets suspended, and you're driving, and you get picked up, that becomes a class B misdemeanor, and yes, you will have immigration consequences there now, stemming from the class C that you originally had, okay? Or DUIs, all of that.
What about bad credit?
No, it's not a crime.
Let me go to him and come back to you.
Yeah, my question is something that I think is one of the problems that many people encounter in the community. Probably communicate my mention, say, visitors visa, with the intent to come stay. So when they come in, they just stay, they just sit quietly, they don't do anything, they don't take any action, visa expires, then they stay for days and nothing is done. We don't even file the immigration to say, okay, this person, maybe we don't even file the immigration in any way to at least secure their stay in this country. And after a while, they don't even know what to do again. So we just say, if this present law is before Congress now, that's definitely what I think is it could only be the way. If not, is there anything that could be done with such type of people?
Yeah. Of course. You can marry man to man. You can marry a woman, fall in love with her. You understand, right? You've overstayed. You can fall in love. You will still pay that penalty of $1,000. Okay? Back in the law, remember the old law that we were all talking about when Bill Clinton passed the old law, penalty of $1,000? Yes, you can. Fall in love with somebody.
Besides getting married,
Or get a job. Let a company sponsor you, like what he's been talking about. Company sponsor you. Get a vocational profession like nursing. Go down to the underserved areas. You still have the opportunity. As long as I haven't committed a crime, you understand, right? What matters here now is the crime. They're looking more on crime. Overstaying is normal. It's not a death penalty. You are deportable. When you overstayed, you're deportable.
So you want to explain that too, right? Which means if they have not started the deportation proceedings against you,
no.
What class are you in?
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's the question we're trying to ask, right? So you're saying you're here illegally, but so far you have not received a letter from immigration that you're illegal, right?
You're on overstay.
You're on overstay. So explain to me, he's trying to find out what's on overstay and what is deportability based on the fact that you received a letter from immigration.
Thank you.
When I was covering the document, when I was covering the grounds for exclusion and deportability, we talked about illegal entrance and immigration violations, right? That's where you fall under, okay? But if immigration hasn't brought the NCA against you, you fight. You understand, right? You fight. You can fall in love with somebody, not a sham marriage now. Come on now, with Cameroonians, you know what I'm talking about, right? Fall in love, you do your thing, live with the person for bona fide reasons, yes, you will stay in the United States.
So just to add to that, the current bill that is
Will still apply to that person.
that person will take advantage
Yeah,
of
that
that
person will take
one.
advantage. You
As
will
long
take
as-
Rise and stages.
As long as they were here December 31st.
And you can actually qualify for one of your state voters. If the person you fall in love with is a U.S. citizen,
you can actually qualify under one of the executive orders at this time. So it'll give you an opportunity to regulate your status because she's a U.S. citizen, because you're a spouse.
Go ahead.
My question concerns the payment of taxes by people who are undocumented. Sometimes when you talk to somebody, they hear that okay, if you come out, they will finally profile and come out. What advice would you give to somebody who is not documented and you are saying that go to IRS, make yourself unknown, make yourself not known to the people that you are here? Is there any risk? Like what assurance do you have that? Because it's not just easy for somebody who is undocumented, maybe working and probably being paid cash, to tell him go to IRS and get a note. So the fear is that somebody may finally say, okay, I'm selling myself out. And the second question concerns the new bill that gives a limited time frame, for instance, for you to go and then obtain your paper. Okay, you're encouraging somebody to go down there, like the case of Cameroon where it becomes complicated and the situation is not regularized. What remedy has to be to go to regularize the paper so that it can come. And it goes there now. It doesn't get those papers going quickly within the time frame of let's say 1 week. What could has he again that he can come back?
Yeah, that's one thing about the way the immigration system works, right? If you're out of status, if you came in here and you overstayed your visa, or you came in through the border, or you swam across the Erie, whatever, if you came in here and you're out of status and you don't commit a crime, okay, you can be stopped by a police officer and they're not going to bother with the fact that you're out of status. They just let you be. Now, if you've committed a crime, that's where you have problems, because they don't like criminals and they hate criminal aliens. That's the only thing worse than being a criminal, if you're a criminal alien. So that's when, if you're a criminal alien, that's when you might be afraid of going to your IRS office, or you might be afraid to go to the airport to pick up somebody. But if you're just an alien who's out of status, you haven't been through the system. So before you can be removed from the United States, you have to go through a procedure called the removal proceedings. And if you're an alien who hasn't committed any crimes, it's more difficult. You're not a priority to them. Their priority is getting rid of criminal aliens. So why am I saying that? It's okay in light of what might be coming in terms of the new bill. You don't have a problem going to your local tax office, or going to various offices to try to start putting your paperwork in order. There's no risk of you getting arrested and detained and deportation proceedings being commenced against you. Chances of that happening is, very, very, very slim. If, like I said, I keep making the distinction, if you're not a criminal alien. Okay, so that's just to answer the first part of your question. I think...
I just wanted to add something to the first part. I mean, right up to about September 2001, right, when September 11 happened, a lot of these different government branches were operating on their own. Like, whatever is happening here, nobody knows what's happening on the other side. Like, even the visa track, it could be on the student visa track, and then somebody who is on the family visa track is on the different track. They didn't use to talk to each other, right? After September 11, when now they're trying to see how they wanted to create one agency where they can talk to each other to make sure that they know what's going on. The same thing that will happen with the IRS, where you apply for the EIN. IRS is not really interested in the other state, the things behind their immigration status and things like that. And another thing is, overstaying your visa was not really like against the law per se. So now they're trying to make it change those things after September 11, saying If you hire somebody who is not documented, it's against the law, you have to pay a fine and all these things before you use it like that.
And just to add to that point before I answer your second question, remember he talked about the preponderance of the evidence, right? If you believe that going the IRS route without you, maybe you should focus on the other evidence that you need and save that, since you don't need 100% of the evidence. Okay? So you buy a house, you do these other things, you do the other things that get you there, and kind of save the IRS thing as a you kind of leave it to the side.
I'll just conclude by saying that the laws are not set for entrapment. So therefore, if there's a requirement that you can go to IRS and pick the EIN number, you're not going to be entrapped.
IRS they want their money.
So let's do a distinction. Why our IRS is not properly interested in checking your immigration status, the DMV is. Right? So to go to the DMV to renew your driver's license, you have to pay $1,000. So this shouldn't be a thought where it means you can go to every government agency and they allow it, right? There's a distinction. There's a requirement in the law that says you can prove by the fact that you pay taxes. Driver's license is a different thing. And it goes back to what James was saying. If you had a driver's license, you're fine. Right? If it expires, don't drive. Because at that point you're in violation. It's just be aware of what your situation is.
What was the second part? Oh, let me see if I remember what the second part was. You were trying to figure out if you go back home to get documentation and you overstay the amount of time you were given, what happens? Did I get it right?
Yes, because the deal, I'm going to study the law as every time. I've kind of reduced the time frame when you are supposed to go and then regularize it so that you can come back. I'm saying if you go there and because of the procedure that can expire.
Now, let me say something. I think you have to think about it something different. Because actually what happens, you would have applied here before going.
Yeah.
They're giving you permission to go. Kind of
a waiver.
Okay. So you would have applied here. I mean, if you just take off a little camera and you apply camera, that's a different situation.
In other words, right, in the old days they used to call it parole. They give you advance parole for you to leave the country and then come back and you'll be safe.
But it was a long time.
Yes.
Right? So the idea is, listen, you don't need that much time away to put documents together, right? So one way we can guarantee you, we can take the burden off of you that, okay, we don't want you to worry about your inability to come back, right? So do your visa application here. So all you're going home to do is just gather your documentation. So that at least is one thing you don't have to worry about. So, if it takes you 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's a window. It's not a,
And I think you're dealing with the U.S. Embassy.
Right. No. See, the U.S. Embassy in Cameroon is informed of what's going on.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So the issue there wouldn't be the question of knowledge. If there's a backup of time, they can account for that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue that you raise is the fact that there's no guarantee that you go there and then you're going to get it, because you have to still meet other requirements. That has been one of the biggest criticisms of the border, because some people think that it's just a trap. They just want to send me out and then I'm not going to come back. But that's what it is.
So is it a talk?
No.
I mean, the whole thing you say is there's no guarantee, but they don't guarantee you that when you go there, they're going to give you the visa.
So what they do guarantee is that if you meet the requirements, you will get the waiver.
See, what I can add to that, right? They have to have a valid reason for denying you a visa, and that reason has to be documented. So if they put forward a requirement and you met that requirement, even if you were out of status, and that's the basis of your application, even though I came in here illegally, that's the only reason that I have, because remember it says that's the only reason why you're not admissible, that you entered illegally or you overstayed your visa. So you know if that's the only reason, you know if you've committed a crime and that crime could potentially jeopardize your immigration status. You know if you had been married before and you got a letter from immigration saying that, that was a sham marriage. You know if you had, let's say you came in as a student and you worked while your student visa, while you were in student status. So you would know if you have violated some other law. If you know that, don't go, because they can use that against you.
Right.
But if you know that the only fault that I've committed is that I came here illegally or I overstayed my visa, then go and do what you have to do. They cannot deny you a visa on that basis because they have to document it.
Right. And that's why one of the conditions is you must be inadmissible only on account of illegal presence. That's a condition, and that's the whole point. So if you can bring all the documentation that you went home to get, there is no reason why they will not allow you to come back in.
I have a question about, you gave an answer earlier about the L1 visa. The L1 visa?
L1, yeah.
Yeah, is it the same thing with the H1B visa? Same condition, like, let's say you were sitting here, you got your H1B visa, you got a job, what do you do to have a residency? And how possible is it for you to move from one company to another one, because being under H1 visa with the company, you're on the kind of contract with them for a couple of years. So is it possible for you to switch to go to another company?
First of all, H1 visa is a little bit easier to convert to for your employer to sponsor you to a green card after you've done your 6 or how many years of being an H1. So the conditions are not as stringent as the L visa category. So yes, you can switch from an H1 to an immigrant to a legal permanent resident, but again, you need your employer to sponsor you for that. Now, unfortunately, over the last couple of years, given the employment situation and the current economic situation in the country, most employers are a little bit reluctant to do that because they have to show that they cannot find a permanent resident, a qualified U.S. citizen or permanent resident, or even somebody with asylum or a refugee who doesn't need to go through an immigration process. They have to show that they cannot find someone to do it. So over the last couple of years, they've been hesitant to do it. But before, usually it was pretty easy to switch from your H1 to a legal permanent resident. Now, can you switch H1 employers? Yes, but you have to stay within what they call the same profession. So if you're an engineer, you can switch from one engineering company to another. Your H1, you don't need to file a new social security application. If you want to move from engineer to a doctor or from an engineer to an accountant, you have to go through the process all over. Another question. How can I change my status from to what? From the resident. Adjust the status. Adjust your status. Yeah, again, it's pretty much the same thing. If you want to change your status from a student, I assume you're looking to change it to a more permanent status. Some people have gone through the H1 even though it's temporal, but you can translate that to a permanent visa, or you can get married, or you can win the DV, or you can join the army.
Yes, my question is directed basically to Kevin because he talked on this. During your presentation, you talked about the 2 years legal residence for adoption. My question is, how does this work in conjunction with Americans who go and adopt children overseas in Russia, China? If they were to go and adopt our children back home, would this same requirement be expected of them?
Okay. Remember, when I talked about the adoption, there are two separate categories. There's an adoption, which basically means you can adopt anybody.
Correct.
And then there's orphan adoption. So what most Americans do, they go and adopt orphans. Okay? And if you remember, I said with orphan adoption, there's no 2-year residency requirement. That's the main difference between adopting orphans and adopting somebody who's not an orphan. Because you can give up your child for an adoption, even though that child is not an orphan. But you as a parent can decide to pass on your parental rights to somebody else. Okay, as opposed to a child that's an orphan, you can be an orphan by both parents being deceased or maybe abandonment. So if that's the case, if the child is an orphan, then you can adopt the child. You don't need to show that 2 years of physical residence with the child. But if you adopt your brother's child, for example, let's say your brother back home cannot take care of the child, and you decide to adopt the child, both of you go to court and they sign the adoption order, yes, I agree to the adoption, then that's not an orphan adoption. In that case, you have to show under immigration law that you and that child have resided at some point for at least 2 years.
So the best route, if one were to go to take a brother or a sister's children, would be to connive for them to go and leave it at an orphanage, right?
Remember what Kevin said earlier about that. If the end, if at some point
the intent,
and see that the
intent.
And we all have to remember that the embassy actually does a lot of investigations in Cameroon, more than they've ever done before. So that is why.
I think I will explain. Kevin and myself will have a breakdown. So this person went to Cameroon. The paperwork in Cameroon was to adopt the spouse or whatever, which means they actually went to the mairie and the check. So it's not something that they do with a lot of.
I think you mentioned one about the statement that the right process in Cameroon, you have to do it as a civil service. Now some people bypass that and go to
Right.
court.
You have to register their motion with the ministry for that. That would be Cameroon, that would procedure for adoption. If you go there, the lawyer locally will tell you, and if you go through that process word by word, because I cannot explain what happens to Cameroon after adoption, but the embassy knows. So once you do that, you have to call the embassy local. The information they get there, because the information I'm not able to that. I'm able to what America ask me also. So when I ask you to local evidence, what you bring to me, I will find it. If this should match what Cameroon expects from me, if somewhere is faulty Cameroon, we cannot do that. It's up to you, the burden is on you, the position, to make sure that in Cameroon, you are meeting every legal requirement that Cameroon has. It's easy to commit fraud in Cameroon. But I tell you, when it comes to America, when they want to investigate the paperwork, I don't think they investigate on. People always say, this person did it and nothing happened. That's bad counsel. Do what you have to do to make a decision and you take it. That's the only way you can make the paperwork. Once you start turning those corners, you spend so much money, they drag the paperwork, and then if you go off, everybody gets stressed. And every time they always say, oh, you do those paperwork takes so long. Trust me, if from the first day you're in compliance, it works. They give you 4 months, you get the 6 months. The same, it's stipulated. That drag happens because somewhere along the line, something is missing. Once you get that reply that we need this, you need to this step. First time you file that paperwork, make sure you're in compliance with the letter of the law. Which means if they give you a checkbox, everybody will understand. It's the checkbox thing. Check, check, check. They're not too smart. They don't really read everything in that paperwork. Make sure you have at least one paper here, one paper to check. You need this to check it. That's it. So in your mind, do the checkbox. Did I meet all the requirements that were stipulated in that paperwork requirement? If you meet all those checkboxes and you think they'll be good, then do it.
Sometimes I need to follow up on what the minister was saying. Sometimes you file the documents several months, several years ago, you didn't forget what was missing. How can you trace back to figure out what
But
missing?
that should be a problem, right?
Yeah, I know, it's my problem. Is there a healthy way to, because I don't remember what was missing.
This is what I would suggest. If you file any document prior to you filing, make a copy of it and keep it for yourself. Because
Yeah,
I
but
tell
in the case that,
I'm already in the
in the
process.
case that you didn't make copies,
Yeah, I didn't
they
make a
have
copy.
what they call freedom of information,
Okay.
which means at any time you can file some paperwork with immigration and they oblige to give you copies of everything that you filed with them. The only problem is sometimes that might take 6 months.
At least I have a chance.
Yeah, I think it's,
But while he said that, I think the more practical thing is just make it a habit of keeping
Okay, yeah.
That might require. I mean, you know, from every time you take a trip out of the country, whatever it is, airline ticket, whatever it is,
Yeah.
just save it. Because you never know when it becomes out.
Because it happened to me when I filed for my three sisters in 2001, and then I went back home in that 2005 to the embassy. They actually pulled the file and they were asking me questions which I had forgotten in that 2001. So I told them that, okay, do I have the option not to answer the question today? They said yes. But my file, I had the paperwork in my folder back home. So I went back home and then called, scheduled an appointment the next morning, brought my folder, and then as they were asking me, I was going through it, and within 2 hours I was out of there. So that was my own lesson. I learned that I always make copies of when you do with immigration.
that's good practice, and it's something that I did, like, because every single paper that I file with immigration, they have it. And like Kevin said, you can do an FOIA request and we'll send it to you. And for some people, like between the time that you apply for the citizenship, you want to know everything that they know about you, right? So if you don't have those documents, you can, 6 months before you're eligible to apply for citizenship, request their part. They're going to send it to you. They send it to you on this. Everything, even the envelope that you bring something to them, they have it. So in that way, by the time they go to your citizenship interview, you know everything. Because the file is going to be in front of that person. They have that file, everything that concerns you. So you want to report yourself and have your whole file.
Let me also say this. Just like when you file your taxes, when you're responding to any agency, respond to the questions that you asked. Don't dump in every paper that you think is necessary. Respond to what is being requested. Because that's where a lot of people actually end up having complications. They dump in everything that's wrong. That, oh, this might help. No, answer the question. If your file is 10 pages and that's your file, that's your file. We'll respond to you on that 10-page file. Just because you make it 100 pages and say, I show you on my grandmother that pushed out.
Next question. The new bill talks a lot about illegal people. More emphasis on illegal people. So apart from H-1B, how can advanced degree holders, PhD holders, master holders, how can they really, benefit from this bill? It seems like the only part I'm seeing so far is just the H-1B, and are there other options?
It does cover that. That's why they talk about the merit-based system. So depending on what your advanced degree is in,
Let's say like in business, accounting.
yeah, depending on what field it is, gives you an edge. So I think the overarching goal of the new bill is to bring in talent. Right? So the key is the higher the education you have, the better the chance of it. The more specialized the field that you have that the training is, the better the chance. So of course the whole argument that they've been making is bring people into the U.S., train them as engineers, then kick them out, and then they go compete against the U.S. Right? So they're finding a way that they can keep those people. They don't cover those classes of people that you talk about. And so if you know any person that has some of those kind of credentials,
But also, when they talk more about the STEM, what about people out of the STEM? Advanced degree. Yeah, because they talk a lot about STEM.
When he talked about changing the intent of effort. Right? Before it was, you were coming to go to school so you could go back. Right? Now they're allowing you to opt for the STEM. So, and I think the F1 change of the intent, right, is broad. So it's just, if you go to school and do business and you come out and you're smart and 0 wants to hire you, I don't see why they won't change your salary.
But again,
Because now you're allowed to change your intent.
But
Or you can have
focus,
the dual
their
intent.
focus, you're right, their focus is STEM. Because again,
Right.
science is, that's where the need is. So if somebody can refocus themselves towards that, somebody who is in the STEM category has higher points than somebody who is not in the STEM category. It doesn't mean that.
Pretty much is sponsored, I think, by Google, Facebook. It's more about engineering and science.
Yeah.
So,
So it doesn't mean that you're not going to get a visa, but a STEM person has higher chances than you.
And let me just add something to what she asked. There are already provisions for people with advanced degrees. I know you have to have an employer to sponsor you.
Which sometimes is difficult.
Which sometimes is difficult. The reason I was going to say it's difficult is because most of the times we go to areas that are already concentrated. Okay? We need to move out to some of the other places where there is a need. And there are lots of places. If you go to the Department of Labor website, there are lots of areas in the country where they have a need. And sometimes you just have to be prepared to sacrifice 2 years of your life to move to those places. Because that's, on average, what it's going to take.
Right now, Microsoft is hiring a whole lot of engineers.
You can always come back.
Okay, so once you go there,
Probably like nurse, certified nurse, so how can you prove? Let's say, for example, you're a CPA. How can you prove if you don't have the experience to show that in regards to getting something like that, a national interest waiver?
no, the national interest waiver. What that simply means is that the U.S. government needs you for some specific reason. So they're going to waive whatever requirements are attached to your visa. So you don't have to go through Department of Labor, or they will provide you with an immigrant visa right away. But if you mentioned if you're a CPA, you're already a professional with an advanced degree. Because I think to become a CPA is similar to an attorney in terms of professional qualifications.
Because some of them, just reading what I read, some of them require you to have shown some work. Probably work experience, past work experience, and maybe you're still just finishing your degree or just getting the certification.
If you can find an employer who is prepared to provide you with an employment.
That's the problem. That is part of my question. I just wanted to piggyback on that. Sorry to interrupt. But does that mean that the new bill do away with the employer requirement where you have to have an employer to sponsor you, either being H-1B or L-1? Does that mean do away with employment?
It doesn't do away with it, but it makes it easier because the number that the employers can take is higher now.
It increases the number.
So now the employers are very picky because they have a restricted number, right?
Okay.
So, but what this new bill does is increases the number, and then for certain categories, there's no cap at all.
Exactly. So what the cap means for somebody with an advanced degree, before employers could only employ maybe 62,000. Exactly. But there's no cap, which means they can take as many as they need. So it makes it easier for you to find employment. But like I said again, employment is easier if you move out of the highly concentrated areas, and that's what I advise people to do. You just need to sacrifice a couple of years and go somewhere where they don't, go to Alaska.
Which will be even better for you because you will be away from all the social interaction and distraction. You save money.
It's a follow-up.
Right, Karen? Yeah. Which will be better.
So you have a STEM degree, you go do a master's or PhD in engineering, you come out, do you have to have employment to go through this merit-based? Because somebody is going to employ you under H-1B, right? To go to this permanent immigration, does the person have to sponsor you? Because there's a lot of focus on STEM, but I don't think a lot of people understand what it means by to have, okay, I have that master's or I have that PhD in a STEM program. Then
I think you still need an employer, but they make it easier for they make it easier for employers to employ you. in the sense that if you have the STEM degree, if you come under one of the STEM classifications,
You can't go back on.
the employers, they don't have to go through a lot of, because they have to show
Level certification and all that.
they have to get a level certification, they have to show that they cannot find somebody. They have a lot of expense, and that's why most employers are reluctant. It's expensive for them to go through that process, and then they spend all that money, they get to the end of it and it's rejected.
So now that process, if that passes, that process is...
It's streamlined. It's streamlined.
And again, the number is high.
And the number is high.
Another quick question. If I go to medical school and a legal role,
Is there a legal role?
No.
If you go to any school, you're in legal role.
You can go to any school as long as you pay your fees and you don't declare that you're a U.S. citizen of the school.
Yeah.
So if somehow you tell the school that I'm legal and they give you a place and you pay your school fees, it doesn't mean that you're in status. It just means that you're going to school.
But the school obligated to check it, yeah. And inform.
No.
I think they require the monitor
Schools are required.
Yeah.
Schools are required to report your immigration status if you come in as a foreign student. Okay? So it's at the point when you come in. If you come in as a foreign student, then they're obligated to keep an eye on you and report your immigration status. Make sure you keep your 12 credit hours and blah, blah, blah. If you're already here and you're already illegal, it doesn't mean you can't go to school. That has nothing to do with your immigration status. If the school is willing to offer you a place, they will.
Because there is a misconception. I've had a lot of people asking me that question. That's why I put it down there. There are a lot of people who don't really understand exactly what that
See, before Obama got to doing the Dream Act, the first thing he did was to say, those kids who came here with their parents undocumented, you understand, right? As long as they're going to school, they are good. So the law currently now is undocumented, go to school, you're fine.
During the debate, Bush and Reagan was very they had this argument about Texas is the only state that allows undocumented kids to go to school. And the other person was saying, should they go to school? Texas, no.
I guess it becomes on the state.
Yeah, the thing that was on the news yesterday with Ohio, they're actually offering immigrant grants to come to school in Ohio. So
I think it's safe to say when it comes to school, there's a bias in favor of immigrants. So it's just the prove that you go to school, if you get into the school, and you prove that you go to school, chances are you actually helping your place.
just don't state that you're a U.S. citizen, because that's also another...
The way that I think this happened is...
So don't say you are what?
Do not state that you're a U.S. citizen.
This representation of being a U.S.
That's
citizen.
another death sentence regulation.
But you don't also say that you are illegal.
They probably won't ask you to.
Yeah, if they don't know, they probably won't ask you. If they ask you, it's better to say that you're a resident or something. But just don't state that you're a U.S. citizen.
The way that I've seen this happen is we have these private schools that are willing to take money from immigrants. And what happened when I was in D.C. we have probably heard about Strayer University. Strayer University is one of a lot of their campuses in D.C. You come in on a B1, B2 visa, and it expires, and you want to go to school, go to them, and then they admit you, you pay their fees, and then they file for your F1, and it gets granted on the year. So that's another way that.
I mean, along those lines, I mean, just be cognizant of which state you're in and what is the application of which law is. Like they just mentioned, 2 states, Texas, Arkansas, there are probably a few more that don't care if you're illegal and you're here, so long as you go to school. So no way you're going to school. One more, I-94, how do you okay?
I-94. They're getting away with the I-94 system, but you're obtaining when you're coming into the border. Yeah, what
Somebody left and he left that question.
Oh, I didn't. Well, that's the document that when you come in as a B1, it's a little piece of paper. Right? That's what tells you how long you stay in coming as a B1. Normally 6 months. If it's an F1 student, it's duration of studies. But they're trying to get away with that. They're trying to get away with it. They just have it on the passport.
The second part of the question, how do you extend it?
Is the last one? Is the last one? Oh, you just apply, right? The last one. Yeah, $10.
Any more questions? We can take one or two really short questions and then we can kind of go with that.
When you were explaining about moving from there was a lot of categories, reverend, spouses. I just want to clarify, so you can file for your relatives only if you are a U.S. citizen, you can't if you're a resident?
Certain categories you can only file if you're a U.S. citizen. For example, if you want to file for your brother or sister, you have to be a U.S. citizen. If you want to file for parent or child, you can be either U.S. citizen or permanent resident. The difference between the two previously is that the parent or child of a U.S. citizen is classified as an immediate relative, which means however long the application process goes, the administrative process is will take. Once that's complete, they get their legal permanent residence. On the other side, if you're a legal permanent resident, the application process takes the same amount of time, but they get in the queue. But the good thing is right now the queue for parents, children of the permanent resident is current. So what Obama has done is they've issued a lot of visas to those people. So right now the queue is current. So there's no waiting period of the queue. So now is a good time.
So there's an age restriction, right? Is the parent has of the legal?
Yeah, if the parent is filing for the child has to be below 21 and not married. Your child filing for the parent, you have to be below 21.
And another good news is that the new law is going to
Exactly.
So if you're lawful permanent resident, you file for your spouse or friend,
They become immediate relatives.
so you don't have to go for a visa.
Because even though the visa category is current, a backlog to develop again. Because 2 years ago, that queue was 3 years, there was a 3-year wait. So if the new law passes, that backlog doesn't matter anymore because they now become immediate relatives, which means there's no queue.
Apply to brothers. Would it speed up the process for brothers and sisters?
Brothers and sisters, no more.
Yeah.
You file for brothers.
Yeah, I do it because it works smoothly for the first 3 years, and then my brother has been stuck now for 4 years. It's been stuck.
That is 2001, right?
Well, the conditions, the conditions are still, you have to prove everything that an F1 student had to prove abroad, you have to prove it here too. And you have to have an approval first before you attend school. First, before you
So
attend
while
school.
they're here, they can.
While you're here, you can contact
the school and be able to get your
high
I-20
college
here.
or whatever,
To asylum, right? So if you say no, and then show up on the interview, they say, but you said you arrested in your country before 3 times, 4 times, because a lot of people interpret the question as meaning have you ever been arrested in the U.S.? So it has created a lot of problems with people and their application for citizenship gets delayed. One of my friends has been waiting for it over years now. So the key is that particular question is causing a lot of problems. So people should know about it.
I want to thank CAMCOH for continuing to continue these events. I think in time we'll get more traction. The one thing I would want to say before we end, my little soapbox moment. The one thing that affects our community, we don't get enough involved in politics. Right? Every single law affects us, but we don't involve ourselves in the politics of the country we live in. Which means participate by volunteering in campaigns. Let we have to be a factor if we want change. So we complain about the laws affecting us. People are trying to, do it after the fact, get involved, become a part of the community. Let's not live as an insular community within the greater U.S. community. Let's be part of it. I think we need to
follow up on that. I mean, that's a very, very important point. Now, you were just basically taking words out of my mouth. Because we know that this immigration reform bill is going to pass somehow in one way or another. Congress is going to do a version of it. So it is our place now. I'm encouraging everybody here to call your congressmen and women. I'm going to call, actually I already called people saying in Sugar Land, is my Congress representative, talking about the DD system, that we want the DD system back. I'm also make the point that we also want what Charles mentioned before, that the family that want to include, to make sure the family is also included by us inviting our brothers and sisters to come to the United States. So these are the two main things that we in Africa, that's how we migrate to the United States. So we need to call our congressmen and women to push for that, so that when they debate this issue, they're going to be talking about that. There was a conversation with Al Green, and that's one of the things that Al Green told us to go to. Say, you guys don't come only to me, all the other congressmen who will be talking about this topic. If they don't put pressure on your congressmen, they're not going to do anything. So please call Sheila Jackson Lee, call Al Green, call all those fantastic people in Congress who represent you. You're going to take action, especially now in August. This is time to act. Thank you, everybody.
Let's go.